What's up, creeps? Welcome back to another episode of Blood Brews. Tonight I'm being joined by Salems Cellar, and we're going to review the 1980s horror classic, The Shining. So grab a drink, and let's dive into this spooky masterpiece.
Here's Johnny!
Alright, well, let me start off by saying welcome, Carmela of Salems Cellar. Thank you for accepting my invitation.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
How are you today?
I'm doing good. I just got back from the Spider-Verse movie, so like my adrenaline's going, like I'm pumped. So
I love going to the movies. I get it. That whole feeling when you come out of the theater usually is pretty good.
Yeah.
So you do your own YouTube channel, and
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do on your YouTube channel?
So it's a horror-based YouTube channel. We dive into some sci-fi. I'm a really big horror and sci-fi girl, but I'm also a Marvel fan, DC fan. So I do movie reviews. I do a lot of trailer reactions, which is just a good time. And then I do like a lot of top 10, like my favorite horror movies with like bad kids or, just like road trip movies, like different, and then I do like my favorite movies from like a specific year, like my favorite horror movies from like 2010. A lot of lists, a lot of reviews, things like that, recommendations for certain movies that just came out or channels like Shudder or Tubi. So do all of that.
Cool. No, it's fun. I've checked it out on many occasions, so I like what you do over there.
Thank you.
What are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking, it's from Uber Geek Brewing, and it's Cabin Fever number 15, and it's basically based off of The Shining. Yeah, it's
That's
an IPA,
awesome.
about 6.5%. No, 6.2%. So this is my first time trying this one, so I'm really excited. I'm a big IPA fan, so.
That's just cool. You were able to find a beer based off the movie that we're kind of talking about. So that's awesome.
It was perfect timing. I went in there. I said, "Do you have any like horror type beers?" And he pointed me to this, and I'm like, "Cabin Fever, perfect. That's
awesome.
Works, yeah."
All right. Well, tonight I am drinking Chalice, and it is from Ghost Town Brewing.
Oh,
it's
nice.
a New England style hazy IPA, coming in at 6.8% alcohol by volume. It's got kind of a cool picture on it. It's got snakes coming out of a cup.
That's awesome.
It's got notes of raspberry, honeydew, orange, and dank flower. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Sounds good. All right.
You ready to do this?
I'm ready. I'm always ready. Oh, it smells good. I'm a wine drinker, so I also smell my beers all the time.
I do love a good red wine.
Yes. Love red wine.
Yeah, I like the smell of this one too.
You just go right into it.
Cheers.
Cheers. That's actually really, really good. I was worried. Really
What do you score your beer 1 to 5?
1 to 5. I would definitely give it a 3.
Okay.
A 3, yeah.
Her beer gets a 3.
Yeah, I would definitely drink it again, so 3.
Mine is easy drinking, smooth, crisp, and just what I like in a hazy style IPA. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4. It's not like the best beer. I would drink it again also, but it's a decent beer. And then also it's pretty hazy. Like you can't see through it at all. Very delicious. All right. Well, if it isn't obvious by the header and my intro, tonight we're reviewing The Shining. It's a rated R horror mystery running 2 hours and 26 minutes. It's from 1980. a year before I was born. Starring Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Danny Lloyd, Scatman Carruthers, and directed by Stanley Kubrick. Did you know that, or according to Shelley Duvall, like the whole famous "Here's Johnny" scene actually took 3 days to film, and they used like 60 doors to like film that scene. Like, they had to break in and show his face in there. Yeah,
I
so
knew it was ad-libbed. Like, I wasn't part of the script, but I did not know that. That's actually really cool.
that's a trip, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like to put the plot into a bit of a question.
Okay.
Now, how would you feel about working as an off-season caretaker for a remote hotel in the Colorado Rockies?
So if this movie didn't exist, how I would feel, I don't, for 5 months, because I think he's there for 5 months. I don't know. Like, if I'm there with my family, it sounds like an exciting job. Sounds like an easy job. You can just chill, enjoy the property. Maybe, but if I learned that there was like something went down there, like somebody was murdered and it was built on an Indian burial grounds, probably not. But if all of those things didn't play a factor, then yeah, definitely. It's like the easiest job ever.
I liked the intro, like when it's following the car going through the mountains and
Hmm.
stuff, and it
Yeah.
just gives you such like we're going out there to this secluded, out in the middle of nowhere area, and I like how it just the anticipation's building for that. You know what I mean? That like, where are we going right now? Um,
Yeah.
so does Jack seem like a good father, or does it seem as if he kind of just tolerates his family?
I feel like he just tolerates his family. He doesn't seem like a good dad. He doesn't seem like a real active dad. Like, he's there. Like, there's one scene where he's there where he says, "Oh, we don't drink." And you can tell he's aggravated. He's just kind of like doing what he has to do to keep his family, but I don't think he was really ever an invested father. That's my
No,
opinion.
he didn't come across very loving unless it was in
No.
front of other people. And that
Hmm.
was what was a trip to me. It was like watching him almost play a loving father and husband in front of like the people that he was like getting shown around, remember? But then after that, it almost like flipped off like a switch. And it was just like, and then Wendy, she almost seemed like she was used to that type of verbal and mental like abuse type of thing, and that was kind of
Hmm.
like seeing that her be able to act that out like that was like, it was intense. So
Hmm.
I thought she did a really amazing job on top of Danny Lloyd, and of course Jack Nicholson does an amazing acting job, but they all three of them were just amazing in this film, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
completely sold it.
Made for their roles. Like, Jack 100% was made for this role. He was
Oh,
just so, there was something so ominous and like like sinister about his eyes. You just look at him and it just looks like he's kind of like checked out and evil already, like right away.
yeah.
Even before like the hotel starts doing its thing, he just has this look about him. It's just such a great film. The acting, like, I actually read that Danny, they were gonna do Tony, like the little guy that lives in his mouth, and he actually improvised the little finger when he's like, "Yes, Mrs. Torrance," yeah, which I thought was extremely cool for a little boy just to like start doing that on his
Tony,
own.
why don't you want to go to the hotel? I don't know. You do too know. Now come on, tell me. Don't want to. Please. No. Come on, Tony, tell me.
Well, the little voice, like, it made it so much creepier. just hearing him do the little voice of like the finger or Tony, it just made it like have this other creepy vibe to it that it wouldn't have had they done it a different way, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you wish you had an ability like The Shining or some psychic power?
I think so. I definitely think it could
Right.
be fun. It's like a gift and a curse at the same time, especially if you're surrounded by like a lot of evil, bad things, definitely. But it could be fun in other aspects. Like I'm a really nosy person, so just knowing like what people are thinking and what they're going to do is pretty exciting. But definitely
Now,
has its bad parts.
do you think that he was seeing ghosts or that he was seeing the past and the future? Which one would you break it down? Because there's points in it where it seems like he's seeing ghosts, right? Like that's how I took it. Like he's seeing ghosts of the people that have been murdered. But what did you take it as?
I take like Danny. I definitely took him seeing the ghosts that were there.
Okay.
Yeah, he definitely was. Like what Jack was seeing. You know what? Both of them. Not really thinking about it, they both were seeing Yeah, I definitely think it was ghosts and not just like, flashes of what happened. But he was getting flashes of what was going to happen too, which was pretty horrifying.
Right? Is Danny's imaginary friend Tony good or bad in your opinion?
I think he's good. I think he has Danny's best interest in mind because he shows him these things he wants to see, but then he blocks it from his memory. So I think he's good. That's a really good question. I never really like sat down and thought about that, but I think he has good intentions.
Yeah.
What about you?
It seems like he was trying to guide him in the correct direction. And if you really break it down and you go based off of this movie and the sequel, it was his inner voice talking to him. So it really wasn't an imaginary voice at all, right?
Yeah.
It was basically him trying to guide himself through, and him being able to foresee the future kind of helped give him like more insight into what he needs to do to survive, I guess. I mean, that's how I took it.
That was definitely a good question.
Would you ever consider entering the Overlook maze, the hedge maze?
Absolutely not. Like just watching them go through this maze gives me anxiety. Like that scene, the final scene where they filmed it, him chasing Danny, Jack chasing Danny, took them a month to do because the cast members, they kept on getting lost and having to use their walkie-talkies. That looks terrifying. I don't know.
I'm the opposite. I would love to like be able to see a huge maze like that. I don't know why, like corn mazes, and just I remember when they had like the I think it was called the woos in my area, and like you could walk through these big mazes. I just think those things are fun for some reason. Being able to get lost and not know,
Yeah. Just gives me all different types of anxiety. Thinking of that.
Well, on the gore scale, this determines how gory a film is. And did you feel like this was dry? Slaughterhouse? Somewhere in the middle? I have my own idea about how bloody this was, but what do you think?
I don't really think there was too much gore in this film. There is a massive amount of blood. I would say bloody. It's not really a gory film. You're not watching too many deaths. Just when the cook, I forgot his first name, when the cook gets axed, it's really not a lot of blood. You're not really seeing anything like crazy. But there is like massive amount of blood coming out of the elevator. So I say bloody. Yeah. Definitely bloody.
I'm also going to go with bloody because the scene that really got me was the one with the two little girls when he has the vision of them being chopped up in the hallway.
Yes.
That's the one that stuck with me. It was just like, I don't know, maybe it was because it was involving children I'm
Hmm.
not sure, but it like that one got me like, oh, like it
Yeah.
kind of weirded me out a little bit.
Hmm.
So, how would you score this film on a scale from 1 to 10?
1 to 10. I would give it an 8. I'm pretty harsh with when I score films. It's a phenomenal film. It is so easy to watch. The score is just ridiculous. Like you just hear the music and it just builds up each scene. It's one of those movies I really really love. But it feels really long and dragged out, and in certain points of it. So yeah, I would have to give it an 8. I love 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 it, but it's not one that I can watch every day. It's not like the easiest watch.
Oh, it's a long movie too. I mean,
Yeah,
2 hours and 2.5 hours. It's a long movie.
yeah.
Plus, for me, it raised a lot of questions, right? Because without the second movie giving answers to all that, right?
Hmm.
It like, how does this kid have so many powers? What kind of does this kid have powers? What is it that this kid's like? How does he do what he does?
Yeah.
Like what's going on here? Like,
Hmm.
so for me, I'd have to give it a 7 because
Hmm.
it made me question too much,
Hmm.
and didn't really give many answers. I really
Yeah.
loved it. I'm more of a monster kid, so it's just like I go more towards those movies anyways, but I also really love and appreciate the acting, the
Hmm.
cinematography, um the score, it was
Hmm.
like eerie and screeching and
Yeah.
just kind of like creepy.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 7.
Okay.
What was your most memorable scene out of this movie? Like, if you had to just pick one that stuck with you when you first watched it, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like afterwards you kept thinking about that scene.
The scene with room 237, when Jack goes into the room and you see like, the naked woman in the tub, and then he's like making out with her and she turns into like this old crusty lady, like that as a kid, because I watched this as a kid. That like stuck with me for like my entire life. Like her laugh, like I just picture him in my head, him walking backwards and then her like this creepy laugh, like like oof, I just got chills thinking of it. So that's definitely a scene that stuck with me throughout this entire film. Ugh, gross.
That one was actually the same scene that I would have chosen, was that
Mhm.
same scene. Like, for some reason as a kid when I'd seen this, that's the thing that locked onto my brain too, was like, oh my gosh, like what is that thing? Like, that was so creepy, like how it like went from looking one way to where he saw the reflection, it was something completely like zombie looking, right? And then coming
Yeah.
for him.
Ugh.
Ugh. Yeah,
And he was
no,
making out with her, and I'm like, ugh,
exactly.
it's
Exactly.
so gross.
Not only that, it seemed like that kind of is what triggered him to start to really lose his mind
Yeah.
because, he was losing it. Like, he was having writer's block. He was like throwing the
Mhm.
ball against the thing. He couldn't figure out what to write, and he was like snapping at Wendy. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, he goes into that room because his boy comes back with the marks, right, on his neck.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I kind of think that's what clicked him into that whole other personality almost. Seemed
Mhm.
like that's when his whole mood changed.
That would do it.
Right? Now,
So gross.
he also has a dream in the movie, though. And do you remember that when he has like the nightmare?
I remember him like crying in his sleep, but do they show it? I can't remember.
I don't think they show it. They just say
Mhm.
that they show him waking up, and Wendy like wakes him up from the nightmare, and he says he
Mhm.
like murdered them, right?
Yeah, I
So
remember. Okay, yeah.
So what do you think triggered his whole crazy outburst with the axe?
I think the what was his name? Was it Lloyd? The person who worked there who killed his family before him.
Oh, the guy
Yeah,
that,
I
yeah,
think
I
they
know
were
who.
kind of like pulling him in, like, you've always been here, you're a part of this, and just kind of, I don't want to say brainwashing him, but kind of like pulling him into a trance. Like he
Yeah,
was already getting like cabin fever and losing it. And I think him interacting with the staff there, I think that was kind of like, and then he mentions once, he says, I had to correct my wife and daughters. Like, you might have to do it too. Like, handle this. So
that's what
I think
also
that's,
that's what also made me think he was super abusive too, like
mhm,
from the beginning, and then like the way she responded to him snapping at her like that, it was
yeah.
like she almost knew like to like back off, and it was
Hmm.
just like it was sad to watch and hard
Hmm.
to watch, but at the same time I was like, wow, that's like, yeah, he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
So how did Jack end up in the photo from 1921 in the end of the film? You know how it like zooms in?
Yes.
Like what? That's one of the things that stuck with me. It's like, are they ghosts,
Hmm.
or like when he was drinking at the bar, was he actually getting drunk? Was he imagining that? But like what was going on there? You in your mind?
It's one of those things that, like, sometimes I think, like, was he reincarnated? Uh, you know, I have so many different ideas of, like, maybe everybody who dies in that hotel ends up, and maybe in that photo. But
Ooh,
he's also mentioned that the Lloyd says to him, like, you've always been here, you've always worked here, like, you're not new here. So it's just like, it's one of those mind thing, it just like plays with you, like, was he always he, like, I don't know, I have like so many different like lanes I could go with that, but I'm thinking like just people who die there
end
maybe
up in the
end up
photo.
in the photograph or are stuck there forever, like their souls.
Right? It, like I
Yeah.
said, it raises so many questions, and you're just like,
Yes.
what happened? Like what? So, what other movie would you pair with this film for the perfect double feature?
Oh, that's a good one. What other movie? That's a really good question. Oh, wow. You know, what, I don't know why I can't remember the name. The the part 2 of this film, the sequel.
Doctor Sleep.
Doctor Sleep.
Yeah.
Obviously, that would be the perfect film to go with it because it tells you the full story. You kind of like, you see, the cook again. I can't remember the gentleman's name. And it goes into more of like Danny's powers, like what is it that there's other people like him. So it really opens up that door where you're finding out like what was really going on all along. So I think that would probably be the perfect movie
Yeah.
to pair. But also, I recently watched Barbarian. I know the two have nothing to do with each other, but if you listen to the score in Barbarian, it's almost the same exact feeling. Like when she pulls up to the Airbnb, if you just listen to it, it's the same. You get like the same buildup that you do with The Shining. I know they're completely different, but it has like that build-up, suspenseful moments. I know they're
Hmm.
not like
No, for
connected,
sure.
but it gives me the same feeling, I think, like watching both films.
Um, do you think that they should remake this film or leave it alone? Should they make it into a franchise and keep going with like three, four, maybe even more? Because
Uh-huh.
two did pretty well, right? The
Hmm.
Doctor Sleep film did decently. I thought
Yeah.
it was a good film. It was another long movie, but to explain and the way it answers a lot of the questions that the first one raised,
Hmm.
I thought it was kind of a cool idea. What do you think?
I don't think they should remake it. Wouldn't want to see that. But continuing the story, because Doctor Sleep was such a great film, it's hard for me to watch now because now I'm a mom, and with the
Yeah.
little kids, those scenes, like, it's a little rough. But it just is done really well. It is completely like, it screws you up mentally watching, and I would love to have like a continuation to that. What happened to that little girl after, just more of the story. So definitely more films, but not really a fan of like remaking it. I don't think you could. Nobody else could be Jack Nicholson in that role. Like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I completely agree with that.
Hmm.
All right. Well, wrapping things up, what movie coming out in the near future, like within the next year or so, whether it's in the theater or streaming, are you looking forward to next in the horror genre?
So it was just announced Terrifier 3 is
Ooh.
greenlit. I'm a huge Art the Clown fan. I was years ago, I watched All Hallows Eve, and I'm like, who is this clown? He is amazing. And then I saw the first Terrifier. I'm like, holy crap, this is the best thing ever. And then the sequel, I didn't love as much. I feel like it kind of got away from who Art was. But uh, Debian mentioned he's going to go back to kind of like the first film, which I liked the random killing. I liked senseless gore. So I'm really excited for that film. But yeah, that Terrifier 2, Terrifier 3, I'm here for. I'm beyond excited.
Well, everybody's been posting on social media about them having a bigger budget and them like
Yes.
they've been talking about that, right? And I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh. What do you think about the use of practical effects in these Terrifier movies as compared to the movies that use like way too much CGI?
I love it. Oh my god, the scene with the famous scene with the girl hanging upside down, being snorted
Yes.
in half. There's
Oh,
just something like, even as a woman, I shouldn't probably love that, but
yeah.
I love it. I watch it, and it's just he's the opening scene for Terrifier 2 with the guy when the he like is ripping eyeballs out, and it's just I love it. I love the practical effects. It's just you can't like you don't see that nowadays, and
Exactly.
that's why
I
I think I love the Terrifier and Art so much, just because it's what gore should be, in my opinion.
I agree. They're continuing what the 80s kind of like instilled, like as far as like that's
Yeah.
pretty much feels like 80s like practical effects to me when I watch those films. Is like, oh my
Hmm.
gosh, this is a complete tribute to 80s horror practical effects and
Hmm.
gore, and that's why I love it so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, please give me more of this.
Yeah.
So i'm I'm there with you as far as that goes. Well, thank you for again coming on and talking about this movie. Um, I will definitely link your information down for your YouTube channel below. Okay.
All right.
And yeah, I appreciate you taking the time out.
Thanks so much for having me. I had so much fun. This was a good time.
Of course, of course. Till next time.
Okay.
Everybody have a good night and thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Blood and Brews.